Hello, hello! It's officially Pride Month, and I wanted to do something special and kind of fun. So for the rest of the month, I'm going to be posting one video a week where I draw and talk about LGBTQ plus characters. I'm focusing on a different group of the LGBT community each week, starting this week with MLM gays and lesbians, so I hope you enjoy. Pause. Hello. Hi, it's me, Editor Linz. I realized while editing this that in my haste to record this video, I somehow forgot to even mention this, but there are heavy spoilers for the characters that I draw. There are 6 characters in this, and each one from a different series or movie, and I really spoil the heck out of every single one of them. So if I mention anything that you haven't seen and you don't want spoilers for, just click off this video and save it for later, or skip that part where I'm talking about that character. That's totally fine too. I'll be sure to add timestamps to this one so you don't have to make guesses or anything. So yeah. I do have one more thing to say that's a little more serious though. I want to give you guys a trigger warning for a part of this video. You see, one of the MLM gay characters that I draw in this is a victim of SA. And even though I tried my best to make sure that his portion was safe for viewers, I did bring it up briefly because it's a pretty big part of his character. If that's something that'll affect you negatively, please skip that part because I really don't want to cause any of you distress or anxiety of any kind. So yeah, anyway, there's your spoiler warning and your TWs, so please heed to that and be advised. And now that that's been said, we can move on to the video. I decided to start this video with our MLM gay characters. I chose 3 for this illustration: Ballister from Nimona, Angel Dust from Hazbin Hotel, and Victor from Yuri on Ice. And I drew sequentially just so I could gush about each of them as much as my heart was content with. So first up, we have Ballister from Nimona. Right off the bat, I'm gonna make it clear that I've never read the comic, and since I haven't read it, I'm going to be basing everything that I say off the Netflix movie. Now, Nimona is a story about a knight named Ballister that was framed for the murder of Queen Valoran on the day of his and his boyfriend's knighting ceremony. He manages to escape the immediate manhunt, but not without many losses. He's lost his home, his future, his boyfriend, and his arm, which was cut off by his boyfriend. So while in hiding, he heals up and makes himself a prosthetic arm, and it's here where he meets Nimona, a teenager with the ability to shapeshift who's been prosecuted for her abilities and labeled a monster by everyone around her. And she ends up being the only one that can help Ballister prove that he's innocent. And the resulting chaos of these events is both hilarious and kind of tragic. And I don't want to spoil too much else, but it's honestly just a beautiful and fun tale, so I really recommend you give it a watch if you have time. Now, this is a Pride video, so obviously I want to talk about Ballister's complicated relationship. It starts out beautifully. He and his boyfriend Ambrosius have been together for a while now, and both are about to be knighted. It should be one of the happiest days of their lives, much like a graduation or something of that caliber. But as Ballister is being knighted, a laser shoots out of his swords at the queen, and once the queen falls, everything goes haywire. In his surprise and his haste, Ambrosius runs forward and cuts off Ballister's arm. And to Ballister, this means Ambrosius believes that he did this, and that he's a threat. It's a crushing feeling of betrayal in that moment for both of them. Ballister for not being believed, and for being framed, and Ambrosius for believing in Ballister, but being so confused at what's just transpired. It's hard to deny something that's happened in front of your own eyes, but he's in love. He can't believe it, and he won't believe it until Ballister says that that's what happened. And in the end, he's more trying to catch Ballister for an explanation or confirmation that he didn't just do what he thought he did. But to Ballister, he feels like he's being chased out of malice and anger. And it's tragic, because they both love and believe in each other. But in a situation like this, where everything is moving so fast and they hardly have time to think, their emotions are so high they don't have time to express that to one another, there's moments of doubt. And then Ballister escapes the manhunt, and they can't even be with each other to clear the air anymore, so those seeds of doubt remain. It's just so unfortunate and sad, but luckily they work towards getting back together afterwards, Ambrosius continues the hunt, mostly just wanting to talk to Ballister, and Ballister is doing his darndest to prove his innocence. Or at the very least, get a chance to explain or figure out who set him up so that he can explain to Ambrosius and prove to him that he's not just some criminal. I really do love these two as a couple though, so I'm really happy that in the end they didn't break up or anything and that they ended up getting their happily ever after, because that made me really happy. The next character was Hazbin Hotel's one and only Angel Dust. Now, Hazbin Hotel is the story of Charlie, the princess of hell who's trying to handle an overpopulation issue by allowing sinners to seek redemption and hopefully be allowed into heaven. She does this by opening a rehabilitation hotel called the Hazbin Hotel, and her very first client is a famous porn star named Angel Dust. In the pilot, he's introduced as a hilariously raunchy and flamboyant man, but through a music video and now the actual series, we learn that he's mostly acting like this as a front to protect himself. Angel is the victim of a quite frankly tragic and dark circumstance, because early on during his time in hell, he made a deal with a man named Valentino, where he literally signed away a portion of his soul. We don't know a lot of the backstory of this deal or how it came to be, but we do know that because of it, Valentino has complete control over Angel Dust as long as he's in the porn studio that he's forced to work at. And unfortunately for Angel, Valentino is about as far away from a good person as one could be. So Angel ends up not only being overworked, but also being the victim of all forms of abuse, mainly sexual. Now, even though we only have 8 episodes so far, Angel is pretty well developed and is a very deep character. Though to someone unfamiliar with his character, he might come off as shallow at first, but that's entirely intentional. As I mentioned before, Angel feels the need to put up a facade of who he thinks he needs to be in order to protect himself. He's been so deeply traumatized throughout his time in hell that he genuinely believes he has to do this, and it's most definitely a trauma response. Putting on an air that he's alright in order to trick or convince himself that he's actually alright. Unfortunately, we only have 1 season of Hazbin at the moment, so we don't know exactly what direction Angel Dust's character is going, but from what we have seen, he's definitely moving in a positive one. Not only has he found people that genuinely care for him just as much as he cares for them, but they're helping him get through his struggles, and they're supporting him in his time of need. He even managed to fight back against his abuser a bit just to defend one of them. Honestly, his character is already beautiful, and I feel like it's just going to get better as the series continues. There will be ups and downs for sure, and with a situation as dark as his, it will likely be a lot of downs, but I'm hopeful that Angel will get a happy ending. And I'm also pretty hopeful that the series will get a happy or at least a bittersweet ending. Or at least I really, really hope so. Because Hazbin is actually one of my current hyperfixations, and I'm so attached to all of the characters already. Like, I'm so normal about them, I swear. So I just want them to be happy. I do. And don't get me wrong here. I love angst, and I eat up hurt comfort for breakfast. But I'm also a sucker for a happy ending, and they all deserve it, so I'ma be on my hands and knees begging for it if I have to. Anyway, here's my drawing of Angel Dust. This is actually my first piece of fan art for Hazbin Hotel, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, so I really hope you like it. The last MLM gay character I decided to draw was Victor from Yuri on Ice. This series follows Yuri Katsuki in his dreams to be a famous figure skater in Japan. But after a devastating loss in the Grand Prix, he almost gives it all up. It was a former idol of his, Russian figure skater and former champion Victor, that helped him reinvigorate his drive to skate. And little did they know just how important they would become to each other throughout this journey. Yuri on Ice really focuses on the tension between competitors, particularly his top competitor, a young Russian figure skater, funnily enough also named Yuri. It also focuses on the passion for figure skating and the relationship between Victor and Yuri. But the main portion of that to focus on for this video is the relationship between Victor and Yuri, Because I've actually seen people online say that they think that Yuri and Victor happened too spontaneously, but honestly, I feel like their progression was very natural. Yes, if you don't understand the context, Victor deciding to coach Yuri did seem a little out of nowhere, and it doesn't really make sense since they didn't really know each other. But you have to realize that this man was so depressed, but he was masking it really well when we first met him. To put it into perspective, he had achieved the dream to be the best figure skater in the world. Yeah, heck, he had seen the world, and he had plenty of money to boot. But now he's not really sure what to do. He wants to chase more, but he's already caught up to everything, and no one's beating him anymore. He's longing for something that he can't even place, and he doesn't know how to chase it. The only thing he knows for sure at the beginning of the story is that he loves being on the ice. But then, one day, things change. He sees a video of a passionate performance of his own championship routine, one that he made out of sorrow and longing for more. And the one performing is none other than Yuri Katsuki, who, throughout his performance, Victor can tell that he understood the deeper meaning of the set, the longing for more. And he's moved and inspired, so he decides to coach Yuri and help him seek what he's longing. And soon a beautiful relationship blooms between the two. Victor is finally not alone, and through coaching Yuri, he's found happiness and purpose. He's inspired by Yuri and wants to learn more and see more. And then you have Yuri, who started out as unconfident and anxious, wanting more but being held back by his own fear, who ends up finding confidence through Victor, and he manages to push past his fear and grow as a figure skater more than he ever could have imagined. And now he can continue to strive for more with nothing holding him back, all because he has Victor. The two of them naturally fall in beat with one another, and then they fall in love. It's so sweet and touching, and honestly, I really enjoyed Yuri on Ice. Their love story is really special to me, and it's so beautiful. I wish we could have gotten more before it got canceled. But I am quite happy with what we did end up getting in this series, because it's just lovely. Now we're gonna go ahead and move over to our lesbian characters, of which I've decided to draw Pearl from Steven Universe, Adora from She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, and Haruka from Sailor Moon. Starting with Pearl. Now, let's be honest, I couldn't make a video focusing on lesbians and not include her. It's so hard to come across a well-written lesbian character, especially one as complex as Pearl. Plus, I feel like she's just so important for lesbian representation in media and how far it's come in the past decade. So, yeah, we're drawing Pearl. She is one of the main characters in Steven Universe, a story about a young boy named Steven who's both protecting his home as a member of the Crystal Gems, as well as learning about his place in an alien war started by his mother long before he was born. The Crystal Gems are a group of these aliens that have defected from their homeworld and have been fighting to protect the Earth, its beauty, and its people for centuries. And one of the core and founding members of this group is Pearl. For a bit of backstory here, Pearl originally belonged to Pink Diamond, who was ruling a colony on Earth at the time. But with time, Pink Diamond fell in love with the Earth, so they tried convincing the other diamonds to spare it. But when they didn't listen, Pink had to take drastic measures. She disguised herself as a rose quartz, and then she started a revolt against Pink Diamond, aka herself. Ultimately, this all ended with the faked shattering of Pink Diamond and the corruption of Earth from the other diamonds as a direct result. But the Crystal Gems remained strong, having lost a lot of good gems, but not losing the drive to protect Earth and their freedom. And Pearl was right there by Rose's side the entire time. She was in love and happy, and she could see a beautiful future for them. And the craziest thing is that we didn't even know all of this about Pearl until the final season of the show. We knew that Pearl was Rose's Pearl, and they formed the Crystal Gems together, but we didn't know that Rose was Pink. And I was in the fandom when this episode came out, and it was crazy. I had a lot of theories, some of which were true, some of which were just totally off base. Like, I had actually guessed that Rose would probably be Pink Diamond, and a lot of others guessed that as well. But I was wrong about Pearl. I thought that Pearl was White Diamond's Pearl, not Pink Diamond's Pearl. And this mostly stems from her gem color and placement, because all of the pearls we've seen had gems in the same color and place as their diamonds, so I just kind of assumed the same for our Pearl. I even drew this back in high school because I was so confident in this theory, but I was wrong. The only thing I got right was that she was gifted to Pink at some point. But that's honestly the fun part of watching a show like this, where there's clear plot going on, and you aren't really sure what's going to happen most of the time, because you're not seeing every piece of the puzzle. And it's just really fun to try and piece it together when you don't know everything. And honestly, I loved the reveal of Rose being Pink and Pearl being Pink's Pearl, because it both deepened and added more questions to the story, and it made so much of Pearl's character make sense to me. Little questions that had just popped up in my head about her, and it was this reveal that clicked it all for me. And big reveals coming in late after being built up is something that makes rewatching a series really cool. Because you pick up on so much more when you're in the loop of big plot points like this when you go to rewatch it. It's one of the things that I really love about Steven Universe, is just the fact that it builds up its plot so well. And I'm really happy I got to draw Pearl again, because I actually really like her design. It's simple, but I find it very fitting for the character, and it's really pretty to me. I have to admit I struggled with her pointy nose since it doesn't translate into my style well, but I got there eventually, so it's fine. Next we move on to Adora from She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. This story follows Adora as she discovers that she's a legendary warrior princess called She-Ra. She has to leave behind her old life as a promising child soldier of the Horde army in order to protect the entire planet from everything she's ever known. Because just as I said, she was originally a part of the Horde army, and she's been told from a young age that they're doing the right thing and they're trying to save the planet from these evil princesses. But all it takes is one night where she and her best friend Katra decide to sneak out, and suddenly her life is turned entirely on its head. Because that night she discovered the Sword of Protection, which would quickly lead her to the discovery that she's a legendary hero destined to arrive and save the planet in its biggest time of need. And unfortunately, she also learns that she's been lied to her entire life. The Horde isn't saving anyone. In fact, it's an evil army set on taking over and/or destroying everything and anything in its path. She learns that her people, all her friends, her best friend, is the bad guy, and now it's her destiny to stop them all. So it's safe to say that Adora is a sheltered and fairly traumatized young girl right from the get-go. So she goes through a lot of growth and discovery in her time away from the Horde. And I actually really love her character's progression and how they portray her trauma throughout the entirety of the story. It feels almost rare that a cartoon actually delves deep into the psychological effects of what characters are facing for the plot. So it's really cool to see when it's done, especially when it's done well, like I feel like it is in this series. And on another not related note, but definitely relevant for the video, another thing I really love about She-Ra in the Princesses of Power is how it handles sexuality. In their universe, it doesn't seem like sexuality holds any kind of controversy or tension at all. It simply exists, and it doesn't matter who anyone has a crush on, and there are no homophobes showing up and making drama subplots for the couples. Like, people are just allowed to love whoever and whatever they want, and no one bats an eye. And it's really refreshing to see. But before y'all hound me for saying that, I totally get it. I really do. Sometimes a story can't be like that because the tension or drama is important for a character's growth or for a specific plot point, or I don't know, that's just the society the character finds themselves in, so it's significant to the world building. It makes total sense. And I do enjoy plot lines like that because they're pretty dang relatable as a fellow LGBTQ+. But it's so nice for the homophobia and hate to be taken out of the equation sometimes. In She-Ra, it doesn't even matter who you love. They have so much wonderful representation, and it isn't controversial or criticized by other characters at all. It's just there, and I absolutely love it. It's such a subtle background thing, but it's just so nice. Honestly, there's a lot to love about this show. I love this show. Of course, it has its issues, but honestly, what show doesn't have its issues? And Adora is just a great main character, and she's fun to draw too, so I'm really glad I got the chance to draw her today. The last character I decided to draw for this week was Haruka from Sailor Moon. Another fundamental lesbian in media, but this time with a lot more censorship due to the time that it was aired. You see, Sailor Moon is a magical girl anime from the 90s that focuses on Usagi and her team of sailor soldiers, as they, the Pretty Guardians, fight for love and justice against the evil minions of the Dark Kingdom, and in the name of the moon, they will punish them. And yes, that is a quote that I paraphrased directly from the show. Just to give you an idea of what kind of vibe it has in case you haven't seen it, I feel like that was a good way to do it. Anyway, the characters of focus for this video will be Haruka, aka Sailor Uranus, and Michiru, aka Sailor Neptune. Note that I only drew Sailor Uranus because I had to pick one, and I just wanted to draw her more. So I'm sorry if you would have preferred me to draw Neptune, but I was just leaning more on the other, so yeah. Anyway, I mentioned censorship. And if you're familiar with Sailor Moon, you know exactly where this is going. These two were a victim of their time for sure, because they were canon lesbians, but they were censored to be, well, not lesbians in most countries. You see, I actually watched Sailor Moon when I was really little, and I was obsessed with it. My oldest sister had it on a VHS tape, and I would just watch it over and over and over again. And one thing I can say for certain is on that VHS tape, Haruka and Michiru were not lesbians. They were cousins. Which honestly makes some of the things they were doing a bit weird, but like I said, I was really little when I was watching Sailor Moon, so I didn't really question any of the interactions between the characters. I just liked the pretty magic and the pretty colors. Looking back at scenes with clarity, though, makes me realize that it was so obvious that they were a couple, regardless of the censoring. And yet, somehow I didn't figure it out until, like, freshman year of high school. I can't remember if it was through iFunny or DeviantArt, but it was one of those text box memes, sort of like this. Like, that's how I figured out that these two were lesbians. Because after I saw that, I started, like, looking into it, and I realized that America just said no and made them all sweet home Alabama instead of just letting the lesbians be lesbians. Like, it's genuinely baffling to me why they think two women loving one another is harmful enough to children to censor it and make them cousins. Like, it genuinely makes no sense. But honestly, if I'm gonna put a positive spin on this, luckily, that was about 28 to 30 years ago. And I'm very happy to say that more LGBTQ plus representation has been seeing the light of day in the past few years. And a lot less of that rep is being censored into cousins nowadays. So I feel like we're at least chugging along in the right direction. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about Haruka and Michiru and Sailor Moon as a whole. So here's my drawing. Hope you like it. excited for this little series, and this first part was really fun to draw. I know I say that every video, like that it's fun to draw, but I just like drawing. Drawing's fun. Honestly though, the best part is that I get an excuse to draw some of my favorite characters, because I'm fairly attached to a lot of characters, and a good majority of them are part of the LGBTQ plus community, so, you know, I take this as an absolute win. Anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap this video up here. But before I go, I wanted to say thank you for sticking around and listening to me ramble on about these characters. It was really fun to do that, so yeah. I'll be back next week with characters from other groups of the LGBTQ plus community, so stay tuned for that, and hopefully I'll see you then. Thanks again, guys. Bye-bye now.